The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my great honour to stand here today and address this House. In 2015, after the retirement of Frank Corbett, I ran in the by-election. Came very close, but obviously not close enough. It was at that time I finally realized what I wanted to be when I grew up, and just how badly I wanted to win the next time and represent the members of Cape Breton Centre. It truly is a dream come true and one of the proudest moments of my life, and I've had a few. Namely, my daughter Bailey, who is 23, my only child, and she's a registered nurse at the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. She graduated from St. FX in May, and to see her success fills my heart with pride. Actually, when Election Day was called for May 30th, that particular date gave me much hope, as it was my uncle's, more like my brother's, birthday, who was truly one of the most important people in my life. Subsequently, he passed away 13 days later. However, I'm sure he knows that I won. As well, my daughter passed her NCLEX that day, so it was a great day. But when I decided to throw my hat into the race in 2015, my daughter said, "Mom, I don't know anything about politics. I can't help you. I just know about nursing." Now, she's sending me texts and tweets. "Mom, did you see what the Liberals just said?" I would be remiss if I didn't mention my partner Paul, my parents Cecilia and John, my extended family and friends for playing such a huge role in my election success. My team of dedicated staff and volunteers gave me their strength, support, endless amounts of time, and tough love when I needed it. Dylan Hutchins, who was in the House last Thursday, along with my mom and daughter, walked with me every day, knocking on doors, driving me around, and keeping me in line for both the 2015 and the 2017 election. He now serves as my CA and does a remarkable job. Also, thanks so much to Gary, our new leader, the NDP caucus, the entire NDP staff. Thanks for putting up with me and my endless amounts of questions. It's my privilege to work with such an amazing team. I'm a proud member of Cape Breton Centre, and specifically the town of New Waterford. Although I was born in Ontario, I moved home when I was only 2. New Waterford is a community to be proud of. Its history of coal mining has provided the groundwork for a community built on solidarity and friendship. Cape Breton Centre is a place where we look out for one another, come together in celebration and in times of hardship. This past summer, number 12 Colliery was remembered for the mine explosion that took place 100 years ago. This explosion killed 65 miners. In Cape Breton Centre, when there was a mine accident, the fire whistle blew in the community to alert the people that there had been an accident. My mother recalls the time when she was 9 and a student at St. Agnes School when the fire whistle blew early in the morning. It was customary to then stand and pray for the miners. Sadly, this time she was standing to pray for her father, unbeknownst to her. My grandfather died in a mine accident, leaving my grandmother home with 10 kids, the youngest of whom was 6. To say she struggled would be an understatement. That fire still sounds in my community now every evening at 8:30. At one time it was to enforce a curfew. Now it's just part of our community. Some people use it as a good excuse to get the kids in and put them in the tub. A lot of people choose to remain in Cape Breton Centre because of our camaraderie, the way we support each other, and of course our relaxed way of life. Some leave for work but count the days until they return home to their heart, to the home of their heart. Many from the mainland tell us our high school graduations are celebrated better than most weddings. To that end, when tragedy strikes, it strikes everyone. We come together financially and emotionally to those who need it. It is an awesome experience to see our communities pull together and fundraise for those who may be sick or whatever the need may be. Most recently, St. Agnes School burned to the ground, and the community support was remarkable. Fire departments from all over Cape Breton came to support each other, and the community reached out to feed each other and to feed all of those volunteers. To see this gives me hope for our future. For most, when they talk of Cape Breton, they speak to the talent that exudes from our island. The men of the Deeps, Rita, Ashley, the Rankins, and of course the Barras, just to name a few. Albeit the talent is outstanding, it's just a mere drop in the bucket to describe our lifestyle. While I was away doing some CUPE work out west, I was so thankful for YouTube to see the music from home. For decades, we have been committed to our community and what it provides. The miners, who risk their lives every day, did so in part to help build our hospital. Many aren't aware, but those miners had a deduction that came off of their pay to help pay for our hospital and our churches. We have a sense of ownership and accountability. Those miners risked their lives to help provide us with those needs. Mining is a part of our history, a part of history we must never forget, along with their struggles. This is one of the reasons New Waterford Hospital is so vital to our community. We have lost many churches, and those in New Waterford make a connection of community between hospital and church. Without one, our community is lost. Standing together for the community was something Bill Davis did. In 1925, he was murdered by the company police for fighting back for his community. The coal company was trying to break the union, and the union fought back and went on strike. In the end, the company police shut off the water and the power to all town residents so that the miners had 100% of the men picketing and marching through the town. They were charged by the company police force, and Davis was deliberately shot dead in the chest. To this day, we remember and celebrate Davis Day on June 11th. It is so important to not lose sight of the sacrifices that were made, and one of the main reasons why we are such a strong, union-proud community. Our community is beautiful. For the most part, you travel throughout my constituency along the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. Coming from South Bar through to Victoria Mines, New Victoria into New Waterford, you drive along the water. At any given time, the Newfoundland ferry or a cruise ship is sailing on by. From May to June, however, seeing the lobster boats in the water is absolutely breathtaking. Again, during a stint out west with CUPE, I was asked, "Where do you people get your lobster?" I said, "We go to the wharf." To that, she was floored. Continuing through Cape Breton Centre, you connect to Dominion, again along the water, then into the Gardner Reserve and Reserve Mines, and then the area of Grand Lake Road. These communities have welcomed me with open arms. The Volunteer Fire Department and Reserve Mines goes above and beyond for their community. The Grand Lake Road Fire Hall is a staple for their community. While the Hawks Club in Dominion is a club of a group of men that just want to do better for their community. They participate, they volunteer, they donate, they recognize citizens, and it was my honor to attend their volunteer recognition dinner on Saturday evening. It's a wonderful experience to go to these venues, along with a few local pubs, restaurants, and to be referred to as, "Hey, Tammy," with owners and patrons alike commenting, "You came back and it's not election time yet?" Glad to see you're still out and about, because this is what I think being an MLA is all about. Not the shaking hands and kissing babies. I have a few special constituents in Cape Breton Centre that I make a point to go back and visit with, one of which, a senior in a Dominion senior home, had a heated discussion with me during the election period, and she said, "I'll never see you again." She said, "You're just saying the same thing that they all say." Sure enough, in June, Dylan and I went back and left with homemade cinnamon rolls. Another dear old lady who is 100 I stopped by just because she loves company. She lives on her own and was probably one of my biggest supporters. This is my job, and I believe that. In my other life, that was my job. Most recently, I was a national representative with CUPE, which is not unlike politics, as long as you're in it for the right reasons, which I am. In my union life, it was my desire to improve the working conditions of my members, which was difficult with this government when they try and dictate collective agreements. But I digress. I wanted to do this job for the same reasons, to improve the lives of the people of Cape Breton Centre and the province of Nova Scotia, albeit quite the task. Prior to my CUPE life, I was a healthcare worker and know firsthand the issues healthcare workers are dealing with daily. That's why I'm here, to make a difference. Some call me naive. It's the system, and I should accept it. But I really believe I can and I will make a difference. I have bargained provincial health care agreements for the past 15 years, and the funny thing is we actually bargained. Do both sides get everything they want? Absolutely not, but that's called bargaining. Free and fair collective bargaining allows both sides to go in with a Christmas wish book and hopefully to come out with a flyer. Never have I ever sat at a table where there is a predetermined list of what you can and cannot talk about until now. That's dictating, not bargaining. When I got involved in my union, it provided me with so much: continuing education, support, a sense of belonging. I've heard in this House that there should be no lines drawn from party to party or side to side. I've not seen that. When I was running in the election, there were those who said, "You'll never make it in the old boys club." But I already had. I was a union rep. My daughter then came to my defense and said, "You don't know my mother." It was my honor. No, actually I had goosebumps on Thursday to be part of the rally that took place outside the People's House. To stand with those workers who have had their rights taken away, regardless of any letter I may receive, was invigorating. Hear, hear. We need to remember that it's the People's House. And although there may be a slim majority, the two opposition parties received more of the vote than the current government. And I will continue to stand with, support, and rally with the people of Nova Scotia, regardless of what may or may not be deemed disrespectful. I think it was disrespectful to strip 75,000 workers in Nova Scotia of their rights to free and fair collective bargaining. In fact, I'm having a town hall rally in New Waterford this Sunday to talk about our hospital, and I can't wait. I have invited the Minister of Health and the Deputy Minister. Haven't heard back yet, but I'm hoping that they can attend. Regardless, we will come together and gather our concerns, and I will take those concerns forward to this House. Much to my disappointment, the budget did not adequately address the healthcare concerns of Cape Breton Centre or the province. Rural Nova Scotia lost its voice in healthcare following the creation of the Nova Scotia Health Authority. It was actually quite entertaining to hear during a debate I had during the election period that my predecessor was going to talk to the Premier about the dissolution of the NSHA so that we could have our autonomy back in Cape Breton. After the millions that were spent to take decision-making power away from each area, I doubt this was more than a way to try to avoid a very uncomfortable question. Regardless, the new NSHA, as a former employee, union rep, and resident, is not providing residents with the services they require. Let me tell you a story. The Maple Hill Manor in New Waterford is in New Waterford, and since the election, I have asked the Minister of Health more than several times to meet with me and/or at least discuss this facility. He was in town and didn't have the time, didn't even respond until the day before. Regardless, I wonder if the minister knows that Maple Hill Manor needs to publicly fundraise to put lifts in place so their staff and their residents are not hurt. I think this is unacceptable. How can we live with ourselves to know that people are going to work, possibly going to get hurt, and have had to go out on the street and beg for money for the equipment to do the work to look after our seniors? Aside from that, most of the facility is a violation of occupational health and safety. I've seen the seniors in wheelchairs that cannot get into their own bathrooms. So maybe the next call is WorkSafe Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. Now let's talk about long-term care. Not only has this government not opened one long-term care bed, Mr. Speaker, they've also cut the budget to the funding. Yes, they put some back yesterday, but they didn't put it all back. How can anyone, Mr. Speaker, as a human being, take food out of the mouths of seniors? During my door knocking, Mr. Speaker, I met this beautiful elderly man who has many health issues himself at 81. Days before the election, his wife was placed in a home in Tatamagouche, nearly 4 hours away. At 81, that's not a drive you make often. After spending their lives together, this government has added the hardship of distance. For me, those that came before us, fought for the freedom we enjoy today, should receive the utmost respect and consideration. That is not happening. Why do we have seniors, Mr. Speaker, in this province that cannot afford their medication? Sadly, most must choose between oil and medication, or food and medication, or maybe no medication at all. I have learned, sadly, and people need to listen to this fact, I have learned in my riding of Cape Breton Centre, we have seniors who are selling their prescribed medications so that they can afford to buy food. Sadly, I must admit I didn't know that, and I was disgusted when I heard that. Is that acceptable in this House? Because it certainly isn't to me. Speaking of medication, why is Cape Breton Centre underfunded, or Cape Breton specifically underfunded, when it comes to addiction and treatment services? In healthcare, why are we expected to accept less than that of HRM? Actually, we heard a bit of that today in my question. The CBRM is the second largest municipality, Mr. Speaker, in the province of Nova Scotia. We have an ally centre that is doing great work for those with addiction issues, just to name one of their services, that per capita is underfunded compared to its counterpart in HRM. This is not acceptable. The people of CBRM matter, Mr. Speaker. I will be their voice, and I will be a strong one. It's time Cape Breton is put back on the map, and I have had the pleasure of attending some meetings put on by a group called A Town That Cares. It's a group of concerned citizens that came together to try to address the opioid and mental health crisis in Cape Breton, Mr. Speaker. I have assured this group I will do everything possible to ensure their voices are heard. It's time we have a long-term treatment facility in Cape Breton. We have lost too many residents, youth particularly, to drug and mental health issues. Are the residents of Cape Breton not worth a facility to care for those in need? Why are we subjected in Cape Breton to substandard care? I would like to thank my opponents in the most recent election, my predecessor Dave Wilton and Louis Piavasan, but Cape Breton Centre wanted a change. They wanted an elected representative that was available, albeit my staff tell me I'm too available, and someone who connects with the everyday person, and that, Mr. Speaker, is me. On any given day, I have constituents coming into my office just thankful someone is there, just to listen. We don't have all the answers, but we will do our best to find them. This is what government lacks. We are people too, the same as those we represent, and we cannot forget that. As the old saying goes, don't forget where you came from. Cape Breton Centre is consistently faced with high unemployment, drug issues, healthcare issues, and social service issues. Regardless of who you are or where you come from, it is my job, and one in which I'm very honored to hold, to advocate for and to protect those in my riding and the people of the province of Nova Scotia, a position I do not take lightly. Someone said to my mother, "She must be crazy. Her life will never be her own again." To that end, my mother replied, "She's lived this union life long enough and she's hell-bent on making a difference." With that, I extend an invitation to all of you to come play on my island. Thanks so much.